Hello and welcome back to the Roundtable podcast, the show where we talk about Elden Ring PvP, the current issues, and what can be done to address them. Joining me this week, I have five guests, uh, three of them returning from the last episode. We have tournament hosts Bathedinbrena, LBU, and Endathelion. And joining us for this episode, we have two people pretty well known in the community. One of them is the owner of the Elden Ring PvP Discord. Say hello to Gabri.
Hey, how are you guys? How's it going?
And our last guest, he is a PvP commentator, streamer, and a multi-tournament winning PvP champion. Give it up for JeeNiNe.
Am I really a commentator?
Well, you're pretty vocal about the game. You're very vocal about the issues with this game, which is exactly why we brought you on. So we have a pretty packed podcast, a lot of guests, and a lot of topics to talk about. Um, I guess we can start with the recent update to Elden Ring, which just came out on Tuesday. Patch 1.04 came with a lot of balance updates, mostly buffs, a lot of buffs that most people weren't really asking for, but were pleasantly surprised to have them, uh, such as speed increases to colossal weapons, speed increase and FP cost decreases to incantations, and a lot of other good stuff. So I guess we can start with just getting everyone's impressions on that latest update. We'll start with JeeNiNe. So, what are your thoughts on the last update? Good or bad? Give your take.
All right, so I'd say it's definitely not a step in the wrong direction, but I mean, it's still like that's not how you balance a game. Like you start from the ground up, you start from the worst thing that needs fixing, and then you make your way down to the stuff that's a bit, it's a bit less important. But I feel like they're doing it backward right now. They're buffing stuff that, yeah, it's not bad that they're buffing some attacks that were horrible, but. And I mean, the priority is still the priority. It's the stuff that's broken. Yeah, of course, they addressed like maybe carry an exploit and they touched on status just a little bit, but to me, it's really not enough to get like any free pass. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Gabri?
So, I agree with G9, but I want to add one more thing. So the thing is, historically, FromSoft has been known it's easier to get the nerfs of some things through them. Historically, it's known that they do those first. Like they not at first, more like there is easier for them to do that, and it was harder to get certain weak stuff to get them buffed. Um, it's disappointing that certain things like the bloodhoundstep and other status effects were not nerfed. But since we see them like buffing things that usually would take them a very long time, usually on the DLC updates, buffing it this early, that's a good sign that they're gonna be supporting the game like a lot more than usual. So I'm positive on that aspect. We can get them hopefully soon the nerfs.
Okay. End of the line.
Well, it's definitely a step in the right direction. I kind of echo everything everyone else has said. But again, there's so many broken things in this game. We should be playing whack-a-mole, especially with how long that it took for them to patch it. An awful lot of this is like, unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's like they took them weeks to do something which is like changing a few values in a spreadsheet. Which ultimately, at the end of the day, it's kind of shocking it took them as long as they did. And the game is hemorrhaging an awful lot of the old tryhard community from DS3, and it's hopefully not too little too late, but a step in the right direction, but lots more needs to be done, for sure.
Well said, Enda.
LBU?
So I don't know. I have when I read the patch notes, I actually didn't like it. And playing the game, like I definitely agree with pretty much everything the other three have said, that this isn't how you balance a game. To me, you shouldn't buff the things like the time to kill is basically 3 hits right now, if not less. So by buffing things like colossals and some of the spells, buffing their the speed and the recovery that they get, the time to kill is the same. And I think that's the biggest, like one of the biggest problems with PvP is that the time to kill is so incredibly low that this doesn't really change that. So the game, sure, it's more balanced because I can use these heavier weapons, but it doesn't actually affect like the overall balance. I was really, really happy with the glitch changes. Like at playing I mean, I remember the 2-hour invasion that JeeNiNe did, and like, so I'm really happy to see that they are addressing like a lot of the issues. Like they fixed some huge glitches that were made invasions borderline unplayable, and I'm really happy they did that. I think it is a step in the right direction. I don't like their vision, but I like that they're doing something. Is kind of where I'm at.
Brena.
I would say that it's a step in the right direction, but we still need to see a lot more because there's a lot of issues in this game still. I mean, they just like threw a stone into the pond, you know, like there's a lot more like we need to see here. But yeah, everything seems like they're doing pretty good though.
Okay. And as for my thoughts, overall they're positive. Yes, there are a lot of issues with the game, and it's disappointing that none of them got addressed. But at the same time, like seeing colossal weapons and big swords get their speed increasing, incantations get buffed, it was a pleasant surprise, and one that a lot of people weren't asking for. When you look at Reddit, you look at YouTube comments, people were mostly just asking for nerfs, nerf this, nerf that. So it's nice that FromSoft decided to surprise us with these buffs, because I think it will change up the meta in some way. It will get people to come off of the broken stuff and try out these new changes. But they will most likely go back to the broken stuff, which is why like it should be addressed as soon as possible. So while it is disappointing that they didn't get touched, I'm happy that they did make these changes.
So I want to add one more thing on that. So like
Go
the
ahead.
thing is, in terms of nerfs, it's usually when you do a nerf, it's hard to come back from it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they want to look at it and probably find the right nerf to things, and that's why it was easier to like kind of buff something than it is to nerf. And I'm sure the fact that they're already like doing a lot of work. You know, like if you go back to Dark Souls 3, we never had this level of like it's how many balances until like the DLC. So yeah, like I'm sure they're already looking into the nerfs, and there's no way they're gonna keep them. But the fact that they're doing this much work, I think like we need to make sure we emphasize on that. Like to it's a positive sign, and nerfs will come even though we haven't got them.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Oh, go ahead, Enda.
I was just gonna say, I think we have a somewhat of a more clear, especially under a rule set. Again, like I'm mostly a duelist, and I mostly like want to compete in tournaments, or like even cast tournaments. So like obviously under a rule set, we get a better idea of what the core mechanics of the game are now, especially given that like a little bit of absorption seems to have been buffed on certain armor sets, and as well as that, like the bleed and the madness have gone away. Not gone away entirely, but they're certainly lessened. And I think we have a much clearer idea of how the game works, but we're still like miles away. The fact that like a regular unsheathed on the whatever the long katana is called, Nagakiba, yeah, the fact that that still can pretty much two-shot most people is like insane. Like we're still nowhere near where we need to be. Like, and that's where the nerfs really need to happen. So there you go.
Then in that case, let's segue into the first topic, weapon art damage. So personally for me, I think the first step to addressing weapon art damage is to do something about the Shard of Alexander and the Warrior Jar's Charm. For people who may not know, these two talismans, they increase the damage of weapon arts. So I think if they were to add damage scaling, specifically for PvP to these talismans, I think that would go a long way in addressing the time to kill issue. Because for other talismans, like what's the defense talisman, the Great Shield talisman,
Yeah.
they have different values for PvP and PvE. So for that talisman, it'll give you like a 30% buff to your defense, but in PvP, it's a 5% buff. So I would like them to do something similar with the Shard of Alexander and the Warrior Jar Charm. Make the damage buffs different for PvP and PvE. I think if they do that, it would make a lot of the weapon arts in the game a lot more balanced, time to kill wise. Um, JeeNiNe, let's hear your thoughts.
I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like you still want to give people a reason to use these talisman, and like right now I'd say they're pretty much on the border of like, being worth it, like as far as the Shard of Alexander. So if you start nerfing it, it's just going to be like people are just going to be doing similar amount of damage, but instead they're not going to be using the shard. But I think the damage needs to be nerfed, like more like sort of across the board. To me, I've always said that I feel like this game would probably benefit from everyone having their Great Rune. I feel like I've heard a lot of people disagreeing with that, but I stand strong. I feel like everyone having 3k HP would actually help the game a lot.
That's a pretty interesting idea. One that I personally haven't considered. Yeah, it would give everyone more health, and they would have the benefit of having the different rune effects. Um, I'm not sure, like, if we were to do that, would like certain runes have to be like regulated, like Godric's Great Rune, for example, which gives you 5 levels for each stat, which is like I think like 30 levels altogether. I
It's
feel
still
like,
worse than the 3k HP though.
Yeah.
yeah,
In the
So,
in the
I don't
higher
think so.
levels, it's a little bit worse. Yeah.
mhm.
When you
Yeah, one of the things with like the way like the rune arcs and everything work is like it's kind of like a covenant choice, right? Like you there is give and take there. Like I mean like JeeNiNe said I can have 3,000 health or I can have, maybe more endurance for my build and stuff like that and I can just have extra 30 levels. But for me from a PvP standpoint, I would only run the life rune. That's all I would run. I would run the
Mhm.
3,000 HP.
Well, back to the topic of addressing weapon art damage. Gabri, what do you think
So
about addressing it?
we're talking about only weapon art damage, right? Not overall damage, right?
It's weapon art damage, yeah.
Okay, so in terms of the weapon art damage, so we have to look at it from the previous games. The previous game, we had the weapon arts. Yeah, they were useful, but they were not the center of the game. You just use like in Dark Souls 3, for example, where there was weapon arts. You just use R1 most of the time, obviously because of the 2-hit combo, and there was weapon arts were like not that used that much. You know what I mean? The weapon arts now they're a lot more useful, but instead of nerfing the talisman and making you and I agree with Gina on that aspect, like nerfing the talisman would hurt like the build variety. Instead of doing that, the weapon arts themselves should take a hit in terms of damage, and you can access like the higher damage through the talisman. That would make it more interesting because that would like give you more sacrificing in terms of like build creation and everything like that. And then in terms of like countering that aspect, in terms of high damage in general, like not just weapon arts, the ruin thing is very good actually. It's a good idea. But another way they could do it really is just like how they have like specific PvP changes, just like the backstab. Backstab has the extra angle check for PvP, but not PvE, and same thing for like some talismans like we mentioned earlier. They can technically do it like an overall lower damage in PvP. And that could overall lower damage when you're in PvP. This would effectively like make the balancing of PvE not affected, and it would keep the PvE players happy, but also keep the PvP players happy. You know what I mean? So that could be another way where they can just overall lower the damage of the Elden Ring damage, and that could be a big help. That's what
So,
I would say.
so your suggestion is damage scaling, not for the talismans, but for weapon arts in general. So kind of
Yes.
a mix of my suggestion and G9's suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. I wonder how complex that would be to do. I'm not a game developer. I was thinking
It's
just
just
doing.
changes in values. It's nothing
Yeah.
complicated.
Yeah,
It
they
can
already
it can
have
be
a
one
system
value
for
across
that.
the board, like 30% like 30% less damage in PvP. That kind of it can be just straight up just that, and that would be
Yeah,
huge.
I'm just thinking. We want whatever solutions that we come up with, we want it to be like as easy as possible for From to do. Because if we offer like solutions that are too complex, it may be asking too much from them. So like coming up with the easy solutions are the best. But let's see, let's move on to Endathelion. What do you think?
Oh man, I mean, Gabri kind of pointed out something really interesting, which is that the game seems to revolve around weapon arts currently. I think you kind of alluded to it because like they do so much damage, and I don't think that we should end up in a position like Dark Souls 3, where there was only maybe 3 or 4 weapon arts that were really worthwhile in terms of either utility or damage. Like you have your Gundir's Charge, you have your Quick Step, and maybe a handful of others that were useful, but the rest is like you just R1 instead. I don't think we should end up there. I think they should become part of the mix-up game because I think that's where the game itself shines best. because there's so many options. But as it stands right now, because of the high damage, why would you press anything other than L2? You know, like again, like I can literally just press that button and two-shot someone if they're unlucky enough to get roll caught by, like, again, I'll use the katana unsheath. You don't even need the talisman to be nerfed. You just need to nerf the damage, either change the PvP value or do something along that lines. Like, but the damage on them is too high. There's not enough utility in pressing any other button when you could just press that one. So I don't know. As for changes, again, just nerf the overall damage, bring it to either on par or maybe slightly less powerful, like maybe or slightly more powerful. Sorry, so the rest of your moveset is still viable, and you're still encouraged as players to press other buttons. I guess that would be my attitude.
Brena?
There we go.
I'd have to say it's pretty hard to tell like why they put it this way. It seems like it was an oversight, like the damage is just too high. But maybe somebody over there said, "Hey, maybe people would just want to play like weapon art builds, and we'll make weapon arts more powerful." I think the better players are going to say that the weapon arts like Ashes of War, they're supposed to be supplements to your build. Like your build is based upon like your weapon, and your weapon arts are just there to be like a tool of that. Like you would be more likely to throw like regular attacks. It seems like they'll probably nerf the damage, but it's kind of hard to tell like what direction that they're going to go in, because they made the damage really high on like a lot of things. Like maybe they just want the damage to be really high in this game. So
And LBU?
So I have a couple different takes on this. So I do agree with Enda and Gabri that the game is more centered around your Ash of Wars. I think that's design. I think that's intended. I think 100% intentional. That's what they wanted, and I think it's a good thing actually. Like I do think having the game, like, because especially like I've been using katana a lot. If anybody knew me from Dark Souls 3, I used Frayed Blade a lot, and I was huge katana player, and I really like power stance katanas, like especially in an invasion sense. And unsheath is just, it hits really strong. And as far as the way like what you mentioned with Shard of Alexander, nerfing that isn't going to make a difference, because on my build, for example, I run a defense heavy build because the time to kill is so high. So I have 18 faith, and with different talismans, and a helmet, I can get up to like 30 faith. So where I can cast, for example, Barrier of Gold, and then put 2 talismans on to get 78 defense against a mage. And I don't use the Shard of Alexander, but I can still 2-shot somebody because the Ash of War hits too hard. And I do think it's a good thing that the Ash of Wars are better than pressing R1 to an extent, because also in duels, I've noticed I've not really used the Ash of Wars as much, because if somebody is good at spacing and good at punishing you, if I throw out a high recovery attack like Unsheath, they can counter with Unsheath, they can counter with Spin Slash, they can counter with other stuff, they can Storm Stomp it and tank it and break my poise, etc. So definitely Ash of Wars are a good thing in the game. I would say, like, my balance, if FromSoft said, "Hey, LB, how would you change this?" I would do a 20% buff to all Ash War damage and start from there, and then see where it goes from there, because they do just hit too hard, and that's part of the reason why the time to kill is just so incredibly high, is because like they just hit so hard. So to me, the biggest thing is they just need to nerf the damage outright. I do agree with Gabri that, like, and especially when you get into higher new game cycles. I don't know if anybody here's done too much new game. I only went to new game 1, and some of those bosses have an insane amount of health. So like I do think that PvE, it's fine that they do so much damage, because I think they kind of need it. But in PvP, you don't need it. Even if I had 3k health, if I can do 1,000 damage on an Unsheath R2, instead of my time to kill being 2 hits, it's 3. So like, especially in a duel, it's kind of like you still have that really high, that really low time to kill. And I think just a flat out damage nerf would be better, to where they're still really usable. The game is still centered around them and how the movement and everything works. But you're more inclined to do some other stuff, right? I can go for those jumping L1s a little bit more. I can go for those crouch mix-ups and things like that, and chain those into my Ash of War instead of being forced to just press L2. I think a damage nerf would where we would start. I did like the idea, I think Enda mentioned it, of like bringing up damage on the other things. But I think right now that would be too much, and they need to just nerf damage first, and then see if we need to buff the other stuff up.
I think it's important to remember as well, like the ashes, you are right, they're still important. Like some of those Ashes of War are really good to like force a reset or get someone to like lose aggression or be careful to advance. Like Storm Stomp is just, it basically says, no, you are not allowed to aggress on me ever, or else. But yeah.
To echo on what Enda said, Actually, JeeNiNe
Oh
laughed.
no.
He knew.
Oh no.
Oh no. So
Sorry,
to
Gabri, go ahead.
I know. So like to echo on what Enda said, not just Storm Stomp. I think that my issue also with the Ashes of War is there is a lack of like balance. It's just completely different people working on each one. I have no idea what they like. Storm Stomp, how much the FP does it cost? And look at the perk it gets. And then look at other like a Warcry, so one of the Warcry Ashes of War, it costs like 30 FP or something like that, and just
It's
nothing.
still terrible. It's still just as bad as Dark Souls
Like
3.
the balance, exactly. The balance behind some of these Ashes, every single meta Ashes of War has very low FP cost, under 10. I think like I might be wrong on one of them or two, but almost every single meta Ashes of War costs very low FP and it does more damage. Look at Pebble. Pebble has like 8 whatever and it does like 2000 damage, and more damage, more easier to use. Everything, just everything is better. So that in that front too, like I don't understand where the balancing with Ashes of War.
I have a
It's just
theory. I have a very interesting theory. What they did is they went around the office and put like little ideas into a hat, and then Miyazaki like picked them out and was like, "Yeah, that one's good. Yeah, we'll go with that one." Yeah, it's like it makes no sense. I don't know what they were doing, but you know
Yeah.
what? It's
Well,
whatever.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, so generally we all agree, weapon arts, they need damage scaling for PvP across the board. That we all agree on. But even if we were to get that change, there's still some certain Ashes of War that would still be problematic. Like there's still a couple weak ones, still a couple strong ones. I would like to talk about some of the stronger Ashes of War, like Glintstone Pebble. What I don't like about that specific Ash of War is the hit stun. How it's like a true combo. You land the pebble first, and then you combo into the stab, and that can two shot people. Um, would that still be problematic after a damage nerf, or like I was thinking they should get
No,
rid of the hit stun.
Nah.
Like it should not combo.
it's not a good Ash of War if it doesn't one shot, or I mean even if it two shots, like if you nerf the damage properly, like there's nothing wrong with the whole thing itself.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
to add on that, like Pebble was actually one of the easier Ashes of War to backstab. If you actually like, if you the idea is like if you someone knows someone's gonna always follow up with the R2, you roll the first pebble, like the pebble itself, and then like you side strafe behind them, and you'll be able to backstab it. That's like if people know what they're doing, they can get that like reliably. The only issue is that if you nerf the stun, I don't think it's gonna be as useful. You gotta understand, like, there's a combination of passive poise and the damage that, like, the clip that we seen earlier from my video, that makes it very strong. So people can like force tank it. It's not just the damage itself, also the fact that you can force tank with it. That's an issue in itself, and what makes Pebble strong. But all Pebble needs is just a damage nerf, to be honest, and I think it's gonna be useful. Don't nerfing stun is not. I don't think it's a good way to. It's gonna make it worse. You don't want the Ashes of War to become worse. You want it to be usable, strong, and everything, but like not overpowered.
And what
Yeah,
I mean,
about
Oh, go ahead.
I was just
what
gonna
about
say.
Rivers of Blood? Because that one is also like a true combo. If it
Okay, let me
lands.
just say something before we start getting into all these Ash. Like, I think that's a common misconception. It's not a Pebble issue. It's not a Rivers of Blood issue. It's not a whatever issue. Is that it's a damage issue with all of these. Like, the only problem is really that these things are way too easy to pour like a one shot or a two shot. That's really
Yeah.
the only problem with
Yeah.
them. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with these Ash of Wars themselves, like Moonveil, Rob, Pebble. Like, they're all alright. There's nothing wrong with them besides the fact that
Agreed.
they one or two shot. So
Agreed.
it's pointless to go through all of them and say that all the damage needs to be tweaked.
Yeah, and then like like JeeNiNe said, like in terms of the damage, the fact that it's high, you gotta understand when even though it's Pebble, like I said, is easy to dodge and like backstab, because of the damage being high and like the passive pose away covers, it puts this anxiety in you. Even if you're a good player, you know how to counter it. Like it would make you play a lot different than if the damage was lower. Like it's a mental thing. I don't know if you guys get that, but like I'm sure like the damage being high will make you like more worried about it than if it was lower. Just lowering the damage enough is just gonna like make you play more like mentally better, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if I can't one shot with Pebble, like I actually think like there's a really good balance there because Pebble has really good poise break. So if somebody is relying on passive poise, so then the testing that I did with Amir, the only way Amir could get through Pebble was with 133 poise and a jumping R2 with a colossal weapon. So that was how he could tank it. So it's if you take the fact that it one shots away, it actually becomes like, in my opinion, like it's more realistic that I'm going to use it because one shotting somebody isn't really that much fun. But having something that I can break poise with, if somebody's running a really high poise build, is really good, especially if something that I'm swapping to or something along those lines. I definitely think that if we were to just nerf the damage, we'll see a lot more use out of the Asher Wars, even the ones like Rivers of Blood, because actually Rivers of Blood I think is a lot easier to deal with now that the changes came through to Bleed Stun because it's not a true combo anymore. If you get bled, the bleed stun is short enough that you can get out. So like those things aren't really an issue in my opinion. Like even Moonveil isn't really a problem. The biggest issue is just the damage. Like if you move the damage away, then these, there's different outplay that you can do. There's different things that you can get around them, and you'll find more things with these that this is really usable now because my one shot build doesn't work anymore. Now I'm forced to think of other ways to get around this build, and I think that would be a good thing.
I genuinely like this is I have a habit where if I see something this dishonest, like in terms of damage and everything like that, I'm not like there's that straight sword that has the pebble, forget what's it called. It has a very cool R2. I want to use that R2 more, and I don't know why they put the freaking R2 like on that weapon only. Like they could have put more, R2 that same R2 on another weapon because it's a very cool R2. But like I want to use it because the other one that's has a very bad Ashes of War. I'm talking about the one the Grandeur, the one that you summon
Carrying Grandeur?
yeah, Carrying Grandeur. That one is horrible, so I can't use it, and I want to use the R2, but the other one that's actually usable is Pebble, and that one's very dishonest. So like I just can't use it. So if the damage is nerfed, finally I can get to use it. You know what I mean?
You heard it
Yeah.
here
So
first.
basically-
Gabri is in fact honest. Imagine.
Yeah, believe it. I feel that, man. I took Power Stance Nagis out of my inventory yesterday.
So basically, reducing the damage of weapon arts, it'll make weapon arts more utility based instead of damage based. And by making weapon arts more utility focused, we'll see more variety in those weapon arts. That's
Yep.
basically okay. Yeah, and I agree with that. That's how it should be. Because then you see all the different attacks in a moveset being used instead of just R1 being spammed or L2 being spammed. You see the whole moveset for a weapon come out, and you see a better demonstration of skill. So yeah, I agree.
And then
Again,
like
like
to add, sorry, go ahead, Enda.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say, like the ultimate aim of like these nerfs should be to like level out the skill field, right? We need to have your skill and your understanding of the fundamentals of the game to be like shown. As it
Yes.
stands right now, someone with 10 hours of the game can get lucky and then get lucky again, or I can make two mistakes against certain setups, right?
Yes.
And whereas they have to make 5 or 6. Now, chances are I'm not the best player. I'm going to make those two mistakes and I'm dead. It's just that's just how it works.
Exactly.
But lowering that will like make it that your skills are better represented and make the game much more fun to grind out so I can achieve those skills because as it stands right now, pressing L2 even as a Gothstock one trick from DS3, like I'm used to pressing L2, but now it just feels wrong, man. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
can't do it.
You took the words out of my mouth earlier when I wanted to speak. That's exactly what I want to mention. It's like it feels like build based. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
could not just the Ashes of War. I don't want to jump to like also like a mage. You know what I mean? Some mage will like he will strategize. Okay, I'm gonna put the spell here. I'm gonna put the spell here, and I'm gonna put the spell here, and this guy's dead. I found some guy. He literally had 500 HP. He never leveled the vigor at all. He was using some insane kind of frame trapping spells, and he can do this to extent. He combined it with Ashes of War too. So like, how much of it is like skill, and how much of it is just like actually just strategizing outside of the game, was a fight, and then like just spam the spells in order, and then you kill the guy. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
And like he killed me. I fought him 4 times. He killed me the 3 times, and the 4th time, I attacked him and he died 1 hit. I didn't know he had I just needed to attack him one time. Like I just tanked the hit and like I killed him. I was
Like,
on the server.
in the I fought in a 150 tournament. I know, what was I thinking? But the but any of the matches I won, I flawless people, and any of them I lost, I made 2 mistakes and I was cross-naggied to death. It's like there's something horribly wrong there. What, like, no, please make the matches last a little bit longer, just a smidge.
Tiny
Yeah.
bit, yeah.
You pretty much hit the nail on the head with what you said before, and about like the match should be about knowing your fundamentals and just when you reduce weapon art damage, and it's less about pressing one button, then you'll see the understanding of fundamentals be brought out. I would like to move on to the next topic, focusing on a specific Ash War. Its main problem isn't damage. It's actually the iframes. And I know you guys already know what I'm talking about. JeeNiNe, you are very vocal about this Ash War. You talk about it all the time in your uploads. Yes,
No
we're talking
idea.
about
What could it be?
Bloodhound Step is our next topic. So for people who may not know, Bloodhound Step is basically a better version of the dodge roll. It makes you just zoom across the map, makes you pretty much invincible. You can spam it over and over again. It has a very low FP cost, low stamina cost, and it trivializes the game. Just breaks PvE and PvP. And JeeNiNe, you've been pretty vocal about your thoughts on it. You've offered a suggestion of having it take away health when being used consecutively. Has your position on that changed, or is it still the same? Give your thoughts.
Yeah, it did change. Okay, so just so that everyone's on the same page, Bloodhound Step is more akin to Cheat Engine, to be honest. Like, honestly, if Bloodhound Step was in Dark Souls 3, the closest thing that there is to it is, when people actually activate Infinite Iframe in Cheat Engine. That's the closest thing, realistically, to like anything we've ever seen close to it. So, yeah, what I would suggest for a change, honestly, is just taking it out of the game. Like, I honestly would not really settle for less. But if you want to insist that it needs to stay in the game, what I would do is, because you still want PvEers to be able to like traverse swamps and whatnot, like Scarlet Rot swamps. What I would do is I would remove the iframes, but I would keep the iframes for the lower body, kind of like how they do it with jumps, so that PvEers can still zoom in through swamps with their Bloodhound Step spam. And it doesn't have infinite iframe, but I would still nerf the distance a little bit. I would increase the FP cost, and I would increase the stamina cost. That's like what I would be willing to settle for, but I mean, Bloodhound Step cannot really go without like a full-on massive nerf. Like, it can't stay in the game, even if they nerf the iframes a little bit. Like, it's still gonna be broken. Like, Quick Step was broken in Dark Souls 3. Like, people are so... Like, it's so quick for them to like forget. Like, I hear so many people say increase FP or increase stamina or just let it be on the claws, but no, that's not gonna fix anything. You want this thing to like Quick Step is in a good place. Like, Quick Step is where Quick Step should have always been. This is where like the maximum amount of iframe should be. And there shouldn't be more than that. Bloodhound Step has its purpose. Its purpose is to like move a crazy distance in a very short amount of time, but right now it doesn't do that. Right now it's basically Cheat Engine. It's a cheat. You become invincible once you press this button. It's impossible to hit someone. Like, no matter what people say, there's no counter to it. It's impossible to kill someone with Bloodhound Step. And I don't know if some of you have heard this, but Amir has this latest discovery where he found out that your equip load actually influences Bloodhound Step, and you can get even lower downtime between the Bloodhound Step on lower equip load, effectively making it closer to 100% true invincibility on 0 lag, so against PvE.
Damn.
So really, there's no point. Like, what is even the point in having a discussion about Bloodhound Step? Like, honestly, anyone who says otherwise is either new about the game, does not understand the game, or crutches on it and wants to preach for their own church. There's really no discussion to be had on that, honestly.
I have a question for JeeNiNe. Your first suggestion was removing it from the game entirely, but do you genuinely believe that that's possible? Because that would be unprecedented.
Oh, why not?
Why not? They've never
Why
fully
not?
removed. It's because
why not?
I'm trying to answer.
Answer. Why not?
Yes. FromSoft, they've never fully removed anything from one of their games before. That would be an
Is that a
unprecedented
reason?
change.
That's not a reason. That's not a
I mean,
reason.
but I just don't think it's believable that they would. I think they would try to nerf it into the ground, but I don't see them
Don't
completely
care.
removing it. So I feel like
Why
it's
not?
it's here to stay, and we just have to figure out a way to make it reasonable.
Why not?
Uh,
If the community don't want it, it's not going to be there. It's that simple.
I just
So-
don't see FromSoft doing that though.
I mean,
So
you remove it by changing it to something else. Like you make this a completely different thing.
Oh, so a rework basically. That's
Well, I mean, look at what's it called? The Bloodhound Fang. You know, the curved greatsword. Just
Yeah.
put the Bloodhound Fang, Bloodhound Step. Easy fix. There you go.
Yep. Okay. So I
Just
was
fix
gonna
the
I
name.
was gonna mention something regarding that. So like in terms of like removing it, realistically, like I don't know. No, I agree. Like there's no like they could do it if they want to. They're the developers, but knowing that they have a lot of people that use it for PvE, they still want to keep it in some way or another. And I want to add one more thing to put like more put salt on the wound. Regarding Bloodhound Step. So based on the frame data for Bloodhound Step, apparently it even has lower recovery when you spam lower Bloodhound Step than spamming Quick Step.
Mm-hmm.
So like not only it has more iframes, so it actually has even like if you spam Quick Step, you have lower recovery between Bloodhound Step to another Bloodhound Step than if you did Quick Step to another Quick Step. Like that's how like it's just better in every single scenario. So like just to add more salt to the wound. But in terms of nerfing it, I think one thing that I noticed both Quickstep and Bloodhound 2, I don't know why they did this. I hate this. Like I'll mention the other nerfs after this, but like for some reason, you know how you have instant iframe on a roll. So if I attack someone and they panic roll, I'm able to roll catch them, right? And for some reason, they allowed Bloodhound and even Quickstep to cancel faster than what a roll does. And I don't understand why they did that. So, like, do you guys know what I'm talking about? So you attack them, they panic. If they rolled and not Bloodhound Step, they would have you attack them, they panic roll. But then the Bloodhound Step after the roll, and then they get away from the roll fast enough. But instead of if they rolled twice, you would have caught them. But if they rolled and then did the Bloodhound Step or Quick Step, you can't catch them. It nullifies the roll catch aspect of it.
so they can cancel roll recovery with Bloodhound.
Faster than a roll.
Basically, both Quickstep and Bloodhound Step, and they cancel recovery on their own. So they recover. If you're going to Quickstep out of something, I won't even talk about Bloodhound Step. I'll just say Quickstep. If you're going to Quickstep out of something, you have faster recovery. And if you want to test this, all you have to do is if actually I don't know if it works since the new patch with the recovery changes to a colossal, but a Great Shield R2 counter with the straight sword, like if you block and do the R2 counter, was a true hit against a colossal weapon. Unless they quick stepped. If they panic rolled, they didn't get it. If they quick stepped, they did, because quick step allows you to enter that faster. It lowers your recovery to use it. So what Gabri's saying is if I double roll, I will get roll caught because my recovery, the time that it takes me to get out of the roll and start again, is enough time to get caught. If I quick step or Bloodhound Step, the recovery is lower and I enter that animation faster and I don't get caught.
So couple that with like that, if they make it in line with a roll, like in terms of cancel, couple that with the fact that they could to Bloodhound, not Quickstep, if they could make it not start instantaneously in terms of iframes, and add in what do you call it, the damage every time you use it. You take damage. I think that would go a long way, like a 50 damage or something like that, 50 or 60, because this way you cannot spam. If you spam it, you're dying. You're just killing yourself. So I think that would go a long way. Lower the iframes. Iframes. Nothing should have 20 iframes. I don't know what they were thinking. The iframe thing being 20, like that's ridiculous. Nothing should have 20 iframes. The Blood Healers has 20 iframes, but that lets you like you cannot do anything out of it other than just like doing the Ashes of War follow-up. So that makes sense. But like when you just go to neutral, you get 20 iframes, you get invisibility. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. So if these nerfs happen, if these changes happen, I think it would make it usable and not brain dead the way it is right now.
But your main suggestion for nerfing it is adding a penalty to it, basically. Like there should be some kind of penalty for using
It's
it.
not just so one thing changed. Like it's not one thing. Like I mentioned, the damage. You take damage every time you use it, and you make it like a roll cancel, so this way you cannot just get away from you cancel any animation faster than you would cancel a roll. People don't realize how much of this is an issue until you start noticing it. I'm sure if they make it like the roll, you will see how much of a big nerf this would be. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is, even on top of that, because you have so much distance on it, right? You should have the iframe nerf to match quick stop. It can be lower because animation wise would not make sense, like because it's a longer animation. It will be like around quick step. I think we looked at it before, and then it was you can do 15 and it will just look fine. But it has to start like at least 1 frame or 2 frame instead of
Yeah.
Late, delay
yeah.
the iframes,
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they could even just delay the startup as well. Add like even because like the blood healers, if you look like if you're going to use that as a comparison, which I actually think is a pretty fair comparison, there's a full startup animation to get that.
Yeah.
Where you can catch somebody both in the beginning and in the end.
Yep.
I'd like to hear Brena's thoughts. Brena, go ahead.
I would just remove it from the game. Make the Cavalry Knight drop quick step and put the quick step on claws. I mean, if you insist,
plain and simple.
I mean, I like everybody's saying, like this thing is like so powerful in like so many ways, but for me personally, I can't see having something in the game that has the same ability as quick step, but it moves further. So I'm sure you guys have done this fight. I was fighting a guy with he was using quick step greatsword. So I get him one shot, he quick step, he bloodhound steps away 3 times and heals. But when he gets me one shot and I try to get away and I try to heal, it's really hard to get away from that. Luckily we were able to get that fight. But
you mean the glitch? The thing they glitch or something like that? They glitch and then they go the fire glitch.
What Brenna's referring to is the 3 bloodhound step into heal true combo that you see.
Oh,
yeah, okay. like with bloodhound step, like that player can get away and to heal, but like you can't get away from them if you need to heal. There shouldn't be anything in the game that goes further than quick step. I mean, if they want bloodhound step to go further than quick step, if they want it to move you that much further, then there needs to be like significant penalties on this thing. Like you move like a lot slower or something like that. Shouldn't be able to. There shouldn't be something in the game that can outrun a person that's running.
Enda, give your thoughts.
I echo everything everyone has said. I'm also terrified if I ever upset Brena, I'm just going to get removed. My God, that was. Damn, okay.
Oh my God.
But yeah, like, there's a kind of there's a secondary discussion here about like skill curve weapons. Because like I mean it's very clear. The amount of skill required to blood step effectively and do well with it is like 0. You don't need to do anything. It nullifies so much of the game. And if they're even semi-competent, which if they're using bloodhound step, I'm not sure if they are, but even those counters, like someone can like deal with it. Like I know that what is it, piercing fang or that very long thrust can catch a bloodhound step.
I don't think
if you like angle it correctly.
It's a timing thing, and if there's any latency involved, good luck.
Exactly. It's like, but even that, like people can just get the timing and just quick like bloodhound step away again. Yeah, exactly. It's like you could add like insane recovery. You could have it that they could get staggered. It might give iframes, but they could stagger. Like there's loads. I don't know. I think we should just make fun of people as content creators and as people who are like respected by the community. Just make fun of people who are using it.
The people
we did the same for like Murky and stuff, didn't we? Really? We like relate.
I don't know if the stream snipe gankers really cared though.
Yeah.
So but like what you're worried about is the main community, right? Your average player. I'm sorry, but I have no trust that like FromSoft
I
even realize we exist.
I think Miyazaki can come on Twitter and say whoever uses Bloodhound Step is a scrub, but that won't stop people from using it.
I know, but still, I don't see them removing it. I barely see them reworking it. Like
I asked JeeNiNe this question. Let me ask you guys. So I asked JeeNiNe, okay, if you had to choose between the two, which one would you choose? Which would you rather have like this change to Bloodhound Step where Every time you use it, you would make monkey sounds. But no nerf. It stays the same way. But it would make monkey sounds, like different variety of monkey sounds. You know what I mean? Or nerf it to the point where it's very usable, balanced, everything. It's not broken and everything like. But no monkey sound. Which one would you choose?
No monkey sound.
No monkey sound.
No monkey sound. As funny as it is,
I would like the
can't-
monkey
can't
sound to
do
be
it.
repurposed into something
I want to
else,
know.
though.
I want to know just based on the name of JeeNiNe's server. I want to know what his answer is.
Oh,
I
he's
hesitated.
hard.
I
He
hesitated,
hesitated.
but ultimately my hatred for bloodhoundstep took over. So, yeah.
Oh my god. So
But that
go ahead,
that came
Gina.
from that came from I suggested before that to make like people's character take on the shape of an actual monkey once you have bloodhoundstep equipped. That was the initial suggestion. So you have legitimately like little monkey models like running around the like Elden Ring jungle. That was the
Dude,
initial
I can see
suggestion.
the monkey in full bull goat armor right now.
Yeah.
We already have goats and bulls and shit like that.
Oh,
Might
that's
as well
funny.
have monkeys there too.
So, you know what? Here's the interesting thought. So, like, when you activate it, it turns you into a demi-human, like kind of like Bach, and then you're just unable to attack. You can bloodhound step all you want, but then you can't attack at all. You get no weapons, and to like get your weapons back, you have to turn it off.
Yeah, but the thing is, the sound one is they already did it with that goat thing, like the flip thing. I forget the lightning goat.
Lightning ram.
Yeah, don't you make us like a ram sound?
Yes,
like,
you're
you know what I mean?
right.
So what can they do with bloodhound, right? Monkey sounds.
I don't know, man. That's good. Holy
You're tempting me over, Gabri, slowly but surely. This ain't good, dude.
I almost didn't want it to be like that. Just so I could stream snipe somebody, and I wouldn't even have to like watch the stream to know when they're gonna swap to bloodhound step because I could just hear their stream and just hear the monkey noises.
You know what? You actually gave me an idea. So, so with lightning ram, when you use it, you can't like do an attack out of it. With bloodhound step, since it's like
the rolling out of it, and you can stop anytime. Yeah.
But I mean, like a rolling attack, can you like end the animation with a rolling attack? I don't think you can, but you can with bloodhound step because bloodhound step is treated as a roll.
No, it's same. It's very similar.
Oh, okay. Because I was
Brena,
thinking just not being able to do a rolling
monkey
attack
noises
out of
are
bloodhound step.
So I want to add. I'd like to go back to the discussion. I want to add something that makes the game unhealthy as well in general. Like it adds up to the bloodhound thing as well. So if you guys noticed, I don't know why in Elden Ring they put a focus into spamming, allowing you easier to spam roll, to spam bloodhound, like if spamming dodging. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They made it easier, and then like if you do a bloodhound into movement, it's harder than if you spam bloodhound into movement. You know what I mean? Like in general, any animation into movement is harder, thus making like you trying to reaction roll, reaction something harder in a way with it. So you know, people will complain in Dark Souls 3 mostly because of the people. You know, it's easy to panic roll, right? But they did the wrong nerf to that, and then if you check quick step and you check bloodhound, like it's so much easier to just spam the button, get away from things than it is to just actually try to like reaction roll.
Play it, yeah.
Yeah. I don't understand where they get like their feedback to come to this conclusion. And then the funny thing is, like if you watch the trailer, the first gameplay trailer, you can see that this was not there. Roll to movement. I don't know about Bloodhound because we didn't know it existed, but roll to movement didn't have that issue. It was very similar to Dark Souls 3. If you watch Amir's comparison to roll from a while back, it's literally the same thing. But then that would mean like they came to this conclusion, allowing you to spam dodge more, like roll, Bloodhound, everything. Towards the end, I think. I don't know what made them come to that conclusion, but it's definitely the wrong conclusion. It's not healthy.
I'd like to give my thoughts. I'm in the camp of it's not going to be removed from the game. I don't see them doing that, so it's here to stay. I think they just need to heavily penalize spamming it. So, like for the first use, they should reduce the iframes, but then on like the second, third use, and like just every use beyond the first one.
No.
Hold on, let me finish. So
Good.
And these horrible ideas, I feel
Let
shut
me
up.
finish. Let me
I
finish.
can't
Okay,
shut up.
Let me finish. I didn't even give my full idea.
I've had enough of these horrible ideas.
Hang
Let the
on.
man speak.
Gee, let him see. Let him say what he wants. Let's see what
Yes.
the khknight. Yeah.
So yes, penalties for overusing it. So like on the second, third use and beyond, more stamina use, more FP use. So I think you shouldn't be able to use it more than 3 times without using up your entire stamina bar. Like if
You
you
don't
spam
need
it,
to use it more than 3 times. You use it once
Yes,
and you get
that's
away
the
with
issue.
it.
and I'm
What's
saying,
the point, dude?
well,
That makes no sense.
I think if you at least reduce the iframes on the first one, it'll be easy to roll catch. I think you should be able to roll catch the first one, but then like beyond the first one, it should
but
be heavily penalized for using
I
it.
think
Like
one
you
of the
should
things
use
that
all your
we're not
stamina.
looking at when it comes to Bloodhound Step, like one of the things that a lot of people overlook that actually Brena brought up is how oppressive it can be, because you cannot outrun it. It's faster than running. And I think the biggest thing, like if FromSoft asked me what would you do with Bloodhound Step, I would make it have the same attributes as Quick Step when used in online play. That would be because they're not going to. I think Knight's right; they're never going to take it out of the game. But I don't think it has a place in PvP.
So that's where it's hard.
I don't know if any changes will actually fix anything because of how, like, just because of the design of it. Like, it takes you travel so far. Like, honestly, even if it didn't have iframes, I think it would be a huge problem because you press it one time and I cannot catch up to that person if they want to press it again.
Okay.
So like the distance that you move and the speed that you move is
The distance.
equally
It does
an
not
issue
even need
as the
iframes. That's the
iframes.
thing.
Exactly.
It does not
Yeah,
even
it's
need
just as much of a
iframes.
problem.
Yes.
So
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? There's actually one suggestion I got from someone I was talking to him. It's actually one of the best suggestions for this fix. So
Dark's fix?
I forget who was it. Narc? I forget who it is. But
it was
what they
Narc.
said is you basically, if you tap it, you get very short distance, like similar to a quick step. I still think like they should not be able to, like, you know, what we talked earlier where you cancel recovery of a roll passer. But like I'm saying, like in order to get the Bloodhound, you need to charge it like you charge an R2. So that would give you enough time. Like if you cannot you cannot spam it and get Bloodhound. You have to like charge it for like 3 seconds, just like how you charge an R2 to get that distance. And if you tap it, you get like that, like a very, very short distance. Like, you know what I mean? So effectively, you cannot like just spam it and get away like really fast. So you have to fully charge it, wait a little bit, then like go, and then it's you know like a ballista. You're holding some ballista, and then
You know what the
how about
really?
this?
Sorry, go on, Knight. Please go on.
This is my original suggestion that I put on Twitter. Overusing it, you lose iframes and you lose distance. The distance gets shorter, and the amount of iframes you get is decreased with each consecutive use. So that's like
I
another
think
way they can nerf it, make it worse than a regular roll if you overuse
Sounds
it.
like someone's using it.
no, like
That's a nerf of people who crush on it. Like I'm not lying. Like these nerfs are so bad. If the game is nerfed like that, it's not gonna change anything.
So look, like what JeeNiNe is saying, what everybody's saying. The issue is not like spamming it. I mean, like the issue is not like where you can nerf it by spamming it. Just one animation already puts you so long distance that you can just you already negated all the aggression. You know what I mean? Like this spamming thing is not gonna do it justice at all. Like you can't. You have to take care of the initial part of it. Like you can do it based on like what we mentioned earlier. Have it less and it like does not start instantaneously. Let it cost HP and all that. But like just the consecutive part, like the first initial use, it should have a penalty right away. It should not have like penalty after the consecutive, after the second use, third, whatever. You know what I mean? Because one use is already put you so far. Like one use.
Something that's really sad. Now this is pre-patch, so things are obviously going to be very slightly different. But like quick Bloodhound Step, double cross snaggies, one of them seppuku, the other one Bloodhound Step, in the RL 90 tourney were the only matches, with the exception of 1 or 2, that had full decked out poise. That particular setup. They were the only matches to go on for a minute. That's terrifying. That the only way that the game is balanced is with two people bloodhound stepping backwards and forwards at one another. It's disgusting. Like it just needs to go. And if you are if anyone is listening is ever thinking about organizing a tournament for this game,
not allowing it.
Ban it for the love of God. Even in Even in a ruleless, I say just get rid of it because it's not worth it. It's horrible, and I can't understand why FromSoft thought it was a good idea. Like, honest to goodness, it's appalling. But
And
whatever.
It's a funny thing. LBU said this before, where like they actually nerfed Quickstep, but then they brought freaking Bloodhound. Like, what were they saying? Like, what were they thinking?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
And as for a fix,
they fixed Quickstep entirely. Like, I think Quickstep is in an insanely good place. Like, there's several things you can do to catch it. Like, even on high latency. Like one of the people I fight a lot is from South America. We have 200 ping, and even on that setting, Quickstep can be dealt with like some of the Asher Wars, like the lingering
Yeah.
effect of the Flame Strike and how Storm Stomp works and some of the other stuff. And then it's like they fixed it. It was in a great place, and they were just like, okay, here, have this other one that if you use this,
it nullifies everything that it did.
this quick step one basically isn't in the game. And like I said, I genuinely think that like the only way they can properly balance it, because if they want it in PvE, that's one thing. I'm not a PvE person. I can't speak for the PvE community, right? Like I like playing it, whatever, but I'm not
they
like a
love
big
it. They
part of
love
the
it.
PvE community. So I can't speak for them. I can't
You
say what
love
they should
it.
I can't say what they should or shouldn't
They
do in
all love it.
PvE. But like from the PvP standpoint, like it doesn't like there's enough stuff in the game that negates fundamentals. You don't need this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that's our thoughts on this.
Yep,
Yeah,
I think that's enough.
that initial use needs to be nerfed into the ground.
Yeah.
Let's see. Moving on. Twin spears. Who loves twin spears?
I like using them.
Naughty nodding.
I like
Especially
using
on-
them, not being used against me, but okay.
So, like, for me personally, I struggle to like get in on them without like the other player just taking a trade and doing massive counter damage. On top of that, the running L1 comes out extremely quick, way faster than its Dark Souls 3 counterpart. It's just it's a very hard move set to fight against just because of how quick it is, and like the counter damage is just so immense. Um, Personally, I would like to see the startup on some of its attacks, mostly the running attack, reduced. Um, but what do you guys think? G9, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think that's a very oppressive setup because the attacks are so fast and it has so much range, then it just outperforms every other melee setup in the game. Like the only thing that it doesn't outperform is shield because shields win every trade. But other than that, it really outperforms everything because it has superior speed and range. And on top of that, it usually has superior damage. So, I mean, when you have something that's better in every single way, like, what is the point? How would I nerf it? I think there's a lot of ways you can nerf it when it's in a place where it's just superior in every way. You could nerf, like, anything. You could nerf the range, you could nerf the speed, you could nerf the damage. Like, all of them would be good things.
Yeah.
Gabri?
So that goes back to what I said earlier. There's an issue with Elden Ring in general in terms of like trying to there's attacks that are way faster than Sekiro and Dark Souls 3. Like this one right here. There's like in terms of like utility, like distance and speed ratio, it's insanely fast for the if people will look at the frame data, they'll be like, oh, it's only straight sword speed or whatever. Like I don't know what's the speed exactly. You can reaction roll it, but they don't factor in like the distance, the recovery, all that stuff. It's the ratio wise, it's just like very very safe. And I tested it with the Hackerish, and it turned out to be the same speed as a dagger attack, or for a spear, from the beginning animation until you can roll. Like that's how much the speed of the L1 is. L1 of dagger and L1 of spear is about the same, like the amount in terms of frames. So my issue with it is that also you have to factor in the fact that like reaction rolling is so much harder in this game. When you have an attack like this and when you're trying to reaction roll. And when I'm talking about rolling, I'm talking about reaction rolling. Panic rolling is still the same. When you reaction roll, you need to actually move a little bit so you can reaction roll. So when you roll, and then this person is already in front of your face with a double spear that like you can cut the distance really fast. You have this little pause where it forces you not to panic roll again, and then you get hit. If they have a fix to this issue, roll to movement. I'm gonna get to the like nerfing the attack itself. If they have, I think that would go a long way in helping like against these oppressive attacks. Because only good players are going to use reaction rolling. panic rolling is there's no penalty there, and that's what you're supposed to do a lot of times against it. But if you try to reaction roll, you get hit, you get clipped because you don't have enough time, and that's on top of like the input drops with block. So like there's other issues there. But if I were to nerf it, I would nerf the speed. Nerf the speed. I think that's one of the like the range and speed ratio is way too high. If you compare, like I think JeeNiNe said this the other day, how like a twin axe, was it twin axe or twin hammer?
Yeah.
They had like
Axe.
what like who designed these? Like you have the twin axe, the regular axe or the twin hammer. You see the L1, and then you look at the spear and the stray sword. Also, if you really think about it, you're thinking like, okay, this is supposed to be about about the same class in terms of like speed to damage ratio, right? Like why is this so much better in every single way? It has thrust damage, has has just as good tracking, just has the tracking too is an issue. That if that is another nerf that needs to happen, every single thrust weapon should get a nerf to tracking. Yeah, has better tracking, damage. It's just everything is better. Like yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I was about to add on to that. Yeah, the tracking. You can roll to the side of someone or even like close to behind them, and with the way the tracking is, they'll just turn around instantly. And like you try doing that in real life with like two broomsticks. You try to like turn around and poke to the side of you. It's not gonna happen. It's like
Well,
with the
not
way.
only that, the hitbox will just track there as well. Like if you try to strafe backstab somebody that's using power stance spears, you'll be outside of like the hitbox on your screen, and you'll be basically behind them, and you'll get clipped.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tracking change they did. I checked the frame data. I don't know why they did this. Like I don't understand what their logic behind this. But every single thrusting weapon in Dark Souls 3, they actually meticulously like. I don't want to say it's perfect. It has issues. Like and I'm sure someone's gonna be out there saying, "Oh, you just want Dark Souls 3." But like in that game, so if you check the frame data just before the hitbox starts, the tracking ends 3 or 4 frames before the hitbox starts effectively for the thrust and attack. What this does is like it allows the tracking not to be ridiculous the way it is right now. In Elden Ring, the hitbox, the tracking ends when the hitbox starts. I don't understand what they were thinking when they did that. What's the point of using a stray sword or a sweep weapon or whatever? Like when you can have a thrust weapon that has thrust damage and it can work like a sweep weapon because it can just track you.
And it has
You see?
counter damage on top of that.
And yeah.
LBU, would you like to elaborate more?
Yeah. So one of the things, if I was going to look at power stance spears specifically, I agree that the speed is a huge issue, but I think it's way more than that. I think they should have range their spears. Like to me, that like them having range is a good thing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare them to another weapon that is exceptionally good that Gabri mentioned, which is power stance straight swords. So if you look at power stance spears versus power stance straight swords. Power stance straight swords, the attack comes out on frame 13, where it actually hits you, I think is 16 or 17, which is really fast. It's not the easiest thing in the world to reaction roll, but you can space it and punish it extremely, like not extremely easily, but if you're fundamentally sound, you can space and punish it, and it rewards you for being fundamentally better than that person to space their attack and punish them. With spears, you can't do that because of the range. So because you can't do that, they need to heavily nerf the speed of the moveset. It comes out way too fast to be 2 spears, and they also need to heavily nerf just the damage on it for one. And in addition to the damage on it, they need to nerf the thrust talisman, because you can trade with somebody. You can use like jumping like Vikes and trade into them and lose the trade. Like the damage is absolutely absurd. So I think it needs more than just one thing to look at. They need to slow the moveset down, and they need to heavily nerf the damage. And to couple with that, to make sure that it stays in a balanced area, they also need to nerf the counter thrusting talisman.
So you're saying nerf the damage and nerf the counter damage, or just nerf the counter damage?
Both, because they already especially Naginatas, they're just.
Hey,
they're
I don't know about that. I don't
superior.
know about that, LBU. Because look, you gotta understand. The only reason you have an issue with it right now is because okay. So previously you had the counter damage for a lot of these thrusting weapons, but what they lacked is the tracking. That was a huge balance change. Like you still wanted to use a straight sword over an S-stock because S-stock is you can backstab it easier, or strafe it easier, or spear or same thing like that. You know what I mean? But right now, if it has a tracking nerf similar to those, like what would it have? Just range? I don't think that's gonna be enough because like you would have a situation where like the one-handed R1 for the spear, which is very slow, and then for I'm talking about Dark Souls 3 is the spear, and then like you don't want that. So I think just nerfing the thrust damage will hurt like what they're meant to have, what to be. And I don't know about nerfing the thrust
So
damage. To be honest.
where that becomes like I like what you're saying, because I do think that tracking is a problem, but where power stance spear shines is not tracking. Like the ideal way, like I think JeeNiNe, I've mentioned that they're oppressive, and they are. Like if somebody wants to chase you down with them, it is hard to get away from them. But the ideal way to play power stance spears is to stand still and just trade with them, because you will trade, especially if you have passive poise, and you have insanely high damage on the trade. Like the ideal way to play power stance spears, because they are so fast, they have such good range, and they hit so hard on a trade, is to just stand still and wait for them to attack you.
What's good
Like-
to reference what we know from before is what I'm trying to say right here. Like, but we can't we look compare it to what we know before, what worked, and we reference it to that. Because like I feel like when we can make scenarios in our head thinking, oh, we should do this, we should do that. I don't know if it's gonna be helpful, because if I remember correctly, I think Dark Souls 3 counter damage is even higher with the Leo trade. And that was not a problem having these Leo
Probably,
trade.
It
Yeah.
definitely feels much more.
Yeah, so like saying to nerf it, I don't think it's the right track, because like we're now going to the new territory. We don't know like how would that work. If while saying that we should nerf the tracking because it should not have tracking for good reasons, we already know how that's gonna be playing out, and we already know how that it's a safer bet to have that. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say.
No, I think sorry, go ahead, Enda.
LB, you finish your
but,
thought, and then we'll go.
No,
to
yeah,
Enda.
please, yeah.
So I think maybe nerfing the talisman would be a bit strong, but I do think that their damage needs to be looked at, because even like I said, like the range is a good thing, I think, because it's spears and they should have range. And I don't think slowing down the attack will necessarily make as much of a change as we need. And right now, at least, like yeah, tracking needs to be looked at across the board, and I couldn't agree more with you. Like tracking is is definitely an issue with that. I just for power stance spears specifically, I do think damage.
Not just power stance spears though. That's an issue with power stance in general. That like the damage, like
Yes.
it's not an
Yeah.
issue of power. Like every single attack in power stance is just ridiculously strong because it's times 2 everything in terms of status effect, damage, everything. But so that's not an issue per se for power stancing spears. It's an issue for power stancing in general. Like they should not have that much damage times 2 damage, and like it's not tackling only power like power stance spears. It should be tackled for the whole general idea of power stancing. But for the power stance spears itself, what it needs in nerf, assuming that we're gonna get the damage nerf to the power stance in general, like it should get the stupid tracking nerfed and the speed nerf. Like if you get both, that would be huge. I think like it would make it on the line of like being fair, usable, and it still is gonna have like the thrust and the range option over other weapons, but it's not gonna
So I
have.
guess operating under the assumption that damage across the board for power stancing would be nerfed and tracking for thrust weapons across the board would be changed, then yeah, you only need to change the speed. If power stancing as a whole is going to be nerfed, and if tracking as a whole is going to be changed, then yeah, absolutely, you only need to change the speed, because the range again is a good thing. But
Yeah.
Okay. Enda, you want to give your thoughts?
First of all, Gabri, you stole the words out of my mouth. I trademarked that. Please give it back. What the hell? I like okay, but the problem, like the issues with Elden Ring is that all of the problems compound upon each other to make things worse. Like Gabri's completely right. The tracking is a problem. Obviously, that's across the board. There's no way that these weapons should track as well as they do. The poise is an issue because you can just indefinitely trade if you stack poise. Almost. Well, not really, but almost. You kind of follow. The problem with cross naggies is as simple as it's like it's the bleed build up. You can put frost on them, so you get double procs. It's just like there's so many issues, one after the other, that like as a rule, I'm going to just be a broken record and say this: make power stance spears have their L1 be comparable to every other part of its moveset. make it comparable in speed, maybe slightly more damage as a reward. Like, we're all talking around the issue. The issue is that there's one button that's halfway decent, and that is either the L1 or the L2. We want all of those buttons to be useful, so we're incentivized to use them. Because otherwise, I want FromSoft to inject me with the happy hormones when I press one button. Let's go. That's as simple as, like,
Oh my
honest to
God.
goodness, like, it's make the movesets comparable across the board. And then, as Gabri said, because he stole it, power stancing weapons should not do double the damage. That is a huge mistake. And if they do insist, if Miyazaki is just like, no, please, we don't want it. We want it to do ridiculous amounts of damage. Then make it so slow that you're rewarded for actually landing it.
Yeah.
But I disagree with that being an effective. I think just make the moves comparable across the board. There we go.
Okay.
I've had my piece.
Brena,
I'll see you
go.
in court, Gabri.
Delete power stancing.
Well,
Brena?
definitely the tracking is a problem here, but there definitely seems to like I think it's kind of unintended, like how these like double Nagi is just powerful based on like the nature of the game, like aside from the tracking. I think that this is not power stancing. It's more like dual wielding. And every time I think about this, I'm reminded about how power stancing was implemented into Dark Souls 2 fluidly, and it didn't like trump every other thing. Like if one person played power stance build and somebody else played even something, just like a single-handed straight sword or something like this, they weren't going to automatically lose. Like one of the issues that's come to my mind is in this game is that the dual wielding trivializes like the normal type Dark Souls build. Like for these people that they never played like Dark Souls 1 or 2 or 3, they probably never played like sword and board or like a two-handed mace or like curved sword like two-handed. Like I started this game, and I started with like my sword and board build. And then within like 2 or 3 days, it's like, why would I just not use two straight swords instead? And it shouldn't be that way where the double straight sword guy is just always going to win against the sword and board guy. There needs to be a more like a fluidity where the dual wielding just doesn't just trump like every other build just because. It should have been implemented a little bit better, like how power stance was implemented, or probably be more similar to power stancing than it is to what it is what we got in Elden Ring.
Based, Brena. Thank you. That was on the money, mate.
I have a question for Gabri. Recently on the Elden Ring PvP Discord, you banned dual spears from competitive play for the leaderboard. How has that been playing out? Are people happy with that change? You feel like there's a better reflection in skill in the leaderboard now?
I would ask LBU on that. I like honestly, I've been so busy. LBU is another admin in the server. He knows what's going on. What's going on that one?
Yeah, for the most part, people are very happy with the change. There was power stance. So what happened? The original take that we had on it was we treated power stance spears in the same way that we treated like fast curve sword in Dark Souls 3. So we said, okay, let's just make the ones that are like very hard to play against. Ban those, but keep the weapon set as a whole, right? So in Dark Souls 3, you banned Pontificate Curve Sword and you banned Scimitar, but you would keep Rotten Grew. And even some places would, in some tournaments, you would ban Rotten Grew but keep Painted Guardians because the range was the real issue with the moveset, right? When you had the moveset, the damage and the range, it was a problem with like Scimitar and Pontificate Curve Swords. What we did was we banned Naginatas and pikes when used in a power stance. And the reason we chose those two specifically was because the range on pikes and it scales exceptionally well off of strength. And then the damage on Naginata is just stupid good. Just like it just scales better than any other dex weapon. Power stance spears, that is, it scales better than any of the other ones that I'm aware of. And it has innate bleed. So we wanted to ban those to see how it was, and Bolt of Granax took over the leaderboard. And just kind of another nail in the coffin for power stance spears. The two spears that people chose don't have an Ash of War because you don't need it. Like you just stand still and press L2. So what we decided to ban it off of was the reason, the way that it actually plays. And since we banned it, there's been a few people asking for like the really short ones to be brought in and stuff like that. But all in all, like overall, to my knowledge that I've seen, people are pretty happy with the change just because it is a very difficult like you have to outplay your opponent a lot more than if if one person's running
Weren't
power
most
spears
weren't
and one
most
isn't.
players using that? Like I think it was when we allowed only like we banned dual nagis and the pike. Like
Yeah.
weren't most people like ranking in the leaderboard just using the power stance, right? Like
Oh yeah. Bolt of Grand X just took over the
Yeah.
leaderboard. Like
Mhm.
people weren't like some people were using stuff that was different and like still climbing because they were fundamentally better than a lot of the people. But the people that were at the top, not that they weren't fundamentally better than the others, but like they would just stand still and press L1. Like it was really hard to get around somebody because especially if you take somebody that knows how the game works and has and I know we're really early in the game and think the meta is going to change and develop over time, but as it is right now, the people that are more knowledgeable, that are more fundamentally sound than the other players, if they use those setups too, is GG's, man. Like there's not much you can do to actually outplay that person. It's so much harder to outplay the person when you're better than them, let alone when you're on the same playing field. In terms of your fundamentals and your skills, like it became such an issue. It just ran the leaderboard for basically 2 weeks until we finally
Yep.
and there was countless people asking for them to be banned. Even people that like hardly played the leaderboard that I just know personally that I do duel sessions with and stuff were like talking to me, and I tested it with them because I'll be honest, I wasn't a believer. I thought with Nagi's gone it was fine, and I did some testing with value against short spears, and it was incredibly difficult to get around. And then we tested it with with the staff and everything to make the decision. But overall, it's been a pretty good change as far as balance goes. Like there's some people that want them back in some fashion, but I don't see them making a return unless they heavily get changed from the development side of things.
As someone who's played on the ladder, I just want to say to both of you gentlemen, thank God. Thank you. Please, you'd never let them back.
Does that answer your question?
yeah, no, it does. But just building off of that, so what are you seeing being used now? Like, what's popular on the leaderboard now? Now that double spears are gone, is it more
I don't
balanced
really
across
play
the
on
board?
I don't play on the leaderboard all that often. But when on the rare occasions I do play, it's usually dual straight swords. The people who I would consider the best fundamentals players are using dual straight swords. So again, compounding issues. Power stancing in general is busted. Please Miyazaki fix. But that's one of the bigger
Stock is also a very popular one.
Which one?
Yeah,
Halberd Stock.
Stock.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Alberta
sure.
stuff.
Yeah. So like, okay, so there's always gonna be there's nothing going around like the fact that there's always gonna be a good setup, like a better setup than the other setups. There's no going around that. Like it's not gonna be perfectly balanced where everything is equally in perfect balance, right? No, you're never gonna get that.
No, of
But
course.
the point is like it's how what's the word? How brain dead it is something is. You know what I mean? Like what's his name? LBU mentioned earlier. A stray sword has a lot of good perks, like two-handed stray sword. The duelist stray sword. Sorry. In terms of L1, it's very good. It's useful and everything like that. But then like you can still outspace it. You can still do a lot of things against it. Whereas the dual spear. You can't outspace it, you can't do anything, it's unpunishable. I mean there's a way to punish it, but like it's more of a knowledge check. So if they use a running L1 and you roll towards them and then you jump right away, if knowing that they're gonna follow up with an L1, you can kind of punish it with a jump attack. But that's more of a knowledge check. Like if I use it against someone who is aware that's the thing, they can just aim up with a like he can unlock and aim up. They can actually do that, and then I can't do anything. Like it's just, it's unfortunate, but yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Okay. So going from twin spears, like we mentioned before, one of the issues with twin spears is just how fast, or just dual wielding in general, is how fast certain affinities proc, like bleed and frostbite. So I'd like to touch on that a little bit. I think just the easiest way to address how fast bleed and frost procs is just to add scaling, like PvP specific scaling to how fast they build up. So like leave their build up for PvE the same, but for how fast they build up on players, it should be scaled down. I think poison and scarlet rot, like those should be left the same because I think like with how fast they build up, it's balanced for poison because poison is such a slow killing stat. But for bleed and frostbite, they should have scaling for how fast they build up. So that's just my 2 cents. Genie or JeeNiNe, sorry.
JeeNiNe.
Sorry, I'm in like in one of those 2-hour invasion right now.
Wait, you've been playing this whole time?
Yeah. Well,
Oh.
We go over these same topics over and over. Man, these players, I sort of got it. They're either cheating or fucking one of them is max level. Plus, they have like Starlight Shard laying around. Might want to talk about that, like how there's
Which
no
one?
fucking downscaling in this game, and how like Starlight Shard kind of ruined PvP as well. I don't know, even in duels, like you'll like get a duel with someone and they have a Starlight Shard active the entire time, so they never need to drink blue or anything. And Invasion, it's just like infinite blue Starlight Shards, like constantly, like you can use 10 of them. It makes so many things pointless.
I'm gonna write
Also,
that
no
down.
downscaling.
Yeah, we can make
Yeah.
that a topic for later. Well, since you're busy, LBU, how about you give your thoughts with Bleed and Frost?
Bleed and Frost right now, I like it a lot more since the change. Even when used in power stance and stuff. Again, I tend to run a very defense heavy build. So if I see somebody that is using Bleed or Frost, I'm putting on both the talismans that are helping me with that. I'm eating something to increase that as well, like getting a body buff to also increase it. So that's just, it makes it a lot more playable for me, and a lot of, like, I even have armor I can swap to try to get robustness up to deal with that. So with the stun change, I think the stun change is really, really good. I think it's really good for a couple reasons. For one, if I'm on, say, Power Stance Spears and I get a bleed proc, I don't get a free L1 out of it, because the it's too small of a window that I'm stunned. And also with Rivers of Blood, if I get the proc, it doesn't combo into itself off of the bleed stun. I think that's really good. I do still think it builds up a little bit too fast in power stancing, and I don't think that's a bleed or frost issue. I think that is another power stance issue.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is the way the power stancing works right now is it drops it to 90% of buildup when you power stance. So it's still, useful to power stance with it. I think 90% is a little bit too high. I think they should drop it to like 80%, because even look at something like St. Trina's or Vikes that is capped at how much you can get out of it, right? With Frost and Bleed, I can get up to 100 plus build up on a single weapon. But with those weapons that aren't, I'm capped at 65 and 66. And if I'm not wearing the talismans and not taking precautions to counter that build, which arguably you should be, but if I'm not, it can feel really, really oppressive if I get procced in three hits when they're power stance. So I think something that could be a good change would be to drop it, not a lot, because those talismans and those body buffs exist in the game, especially like with robustness. Like, you can get away from it pretty easily if you build for it correctly. But it still can be a problem that, I shouldn't have to change my whole build to it. I should maybe swap a talisman and need a body buff, but to wear two talismans and then need a body buff, like, I am sacrificing a lot to do that. And I think without nerfing the status effects anymore, because we don't want to make status effect unplayable like it was in Dark Souls 3, I think just changing how it works in a power stance value would be beneficial. And I don't think it needs a big change. It needs like very small fine tuning. Like I said, right now it's at 90%, maybe drop it to 85% or 80%. And I think you'd see a lot more flexibility in people making builds against it, to where they don't have to sacrifice their entire build just to counter the status. And I think there's, and if they want to do that, then they're even in a stronger position, right? Like, I think there's good outplay there if they were to change it a little bit. It doesn't feel too oppressive to me right now. I think it's in an okay place, but I think it can be a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Enda, give your thoughts.
Oh God. From have themselves kind of caught. LBU kind of touched on it, saying that like you're forced to kind of build around it. What they've put themselves in a position where they have tons of items. They have a couple of talismans that basically negate that negate bleed already to a certain degree. Even before, it wasn't perfect. It was far from perfect, but it was a solution. And if they do that anymore, then basically bleed and frost will just be like useless, utterly
Exactly,
useless. Yeah. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. I think they thought, oh, we'll give them an option, but in the long list of compounding issues, you don't want the talismans to be necessary. You don't want the items to be necessary, because it takes away player agency. Like, if I'm forced to do something, that's another buff or another talisman I couldn't use. Like, again, compounding issues with this game, but Bleed and Frost are probably where they should be. Maybe slightly worse. Very slightly, a couple of tweaks here or there. But seeing as you have the body buffs and you have the rings, I don't really know what From can do with them.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly worse is about as good. Slightly worse.
Mm-hmm.
Make its build up slightly worse or something. But yeah, they've got themselves caught, and I don't know how they're going to get out of this one. So whatever.
Brena, give your thoughts.
Probably what LBU said was right. Take it from 90% to 80% and see what happens with that. I think, unfortunately, they're probably going to just nerf it into the ground like they've done in the past games. And it's kind of interesting that they put these things back in the game and put status in general when they've always like nerfed this stuff. So it was kind of and made it so strong. It's like feels like we're just like reliving like the past again.
Historically, with FromSoft, they can never find a good middle ground. It's either too strong or too weak. They have a hard time getting it just right with anything. Anything else you wanted to say, Brenna?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
And that's kind of a tough one.
Like, just as something to add very, very quickly, like the amount of even with it nerfed into the ground, like it's like still free pressure, especially if they have good spacing and are able to aggressively space you off using like the boluses or whatever they're called. The items that basically revive it. If they keep enough pressure on you, you're never going to be able to eat that thing. Like, and a good invader or even a good duelist will make sure that you're never able to do that, at least in a semi-decent arena that isn't academic game.
I do have one other thing I want to say, which was
Yeah,
you
go for it.
mentioned or khknight mentioned rot or how he felt about poison rot.
Yeah.
You should definitely be able to purchase the madness
yeah.
and rot boluses and infinite
Yeah.
supply in this
Yes.
game. Like not being able to do that is like a major oversight. Like
The
I like
strings.
stream. Like I
Strings,
stream.
too.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah,
Brenna.
the string item, like you got to kill the little gorillas to like grind for that. Yeah, like I think
Yeah.
JeeNiNe put the string like really well. Like we were going, like you could go through 20 like bundle in Dark Souls 3 like in a single invasion. Then you're gonna get around like 20 string like through an entire like 100 like hour playthrough. Like so, there's a bit of disparity with like the items there. But we definitely need like Rotten Madness Ballus because like for me personally, like when I'm streaming and like somebody lands like a rot breath, it's just like. Well, I guess I'm just gonna black crystal.
Isn't there one for rot? I'm pretty sure there's one for
You
rot.
can
There
buy
is.
3 from one merchant, but if you kill him and or there's just no other way to get more than like a certain amount. There you can't buy those in an infinite supply.
Can I speak
You
on that
can't
real
buy
quick?
the. What do you say?
I just wanted to give my thoughts about like being able to buy poison antidotes. Like with being able to buy strings so you can make rope fire bombs, like that I agree with 100%. But I feel like if you were able to buy poison antidotes, that would be an indirect nerf and a big indirect nerf to poison in general. Because I thought with Dark Souls 3, what made poison so weak is that you can have 99 of the poison antidotes and you could just eat that really quickly, get rid
There,
of the poison buildup. So I feel like if you were to make it possible to buy the poison antidote in Elden Ring, that would just be a huge nerf to poison.
well, you
And
can buy a poison.
You
There is a
can.
poison
No, you
one.
can.
There's
is it
you can
limited
buy
supply
it.
though? I know
You
you
can
can
buy
get.
it.
You can
You
buy
can
them
buy infinite
infinitely.
poison moss. You can buy
Dude.
infinite everything except for madness, rot, and then the death boluses.
Oh really? Which merchant sells infinite poison moss?
I'd have
You
to look it
can
up.
no,
How you
you
unlock
get
that?
it from Lindal. Like you fight this boss, I forget his name, and then
Yeah.
the bell boss or whatever, and you take it back to the bell maidens.
I'd have
Anyways,
to.
you skipped the best take on this, man. You skipped me earlier. So listen.
I was gonna get to you.
um,
Sorry. Go ahead. This is your time.
okay, so listen. In terms of that, I completely disagree with the change about the stun. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. So the stun effectively was the best chance to actually. We know the build up is gonna be nerfed. I like you can feel it coming. They're gonna nerf that. But now if they nerfed it to the point like okay now you cannot have the true combo. If they nerf it now to let's say make it, we know they're gonna nerf it and then they're gonna nerf it. They're gonna look back to how they did it before and then like they can look back, oh, well, we nerfed it to like this in Dark Souls 3 because back in Dark Souls 3 the bleed was nerfed to the point where like it was became useless in a way, right?
Hmm.
The stun was a way to actually make it now useful, and nerfing the
Not
stun.
useless, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So, and if imagine Dark Souls 3 at the end of cycle like bleed, but with Elden Ring's stun before nerf, that would be the most balanced the status buff can be since like the first Demon Souls or whatever, the most balanced in terms of effective usefulness, in terms of and not being broken. Right now, with the low stun, it just they became useless again after they nerfed the build up. To me, in my opinion, that's what's gonna happen, and I do not like the way they did that. I feel like they were misguided when they did that. It was a very good opportunity to get an actual like status build up that's balanced, and I think we just lost it because it's hard to when they nerf it, it's hard to get it back, and I'm just a bit disappointed on that aspect.
JeeNiNe, are you able to speak on the topic now, or are you still busy with your invasion?
No, I'm good.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I sort of agree. Well, sort of agree with what Gabri said. The thing is, it's like status is a bit complicated because you kind of want it to be unique, and you don't just want status to just be damage boost. Like you want status to be its own thing, and I mean Gabri's right. If you do take out the stun, which they did, you leave it as it's just now pretty much a damage buff to everything you do. So it's like whatever does the most damage is best, and I mean that's sort of like unoriginal, but I still think that status needs to be nerfed. I don't want it nerfed too bad because I don't want it nerfed to the ground, but I feel like it's still right now very, very strong. I don't know if you guys played against like players who use like Saint Renas, like unironically, like try hard. But now with the buff to this Ash of War, it's extremely strong. Like the Saint Renas now, you can buff them mid fight and pretty much sleep in 2 hits. Like that's a strong one. I mean, every time I fight someone who's slightly over level with bleed, they can bleed in pretty much 2 hits. That's also part of the power stancing problem. I mean, it's the same thing all over. Everyone knows that there needs to be like tweaks regarding the status. It's just how you want to approach it. There's many ways to approach it. Either you nerf the damage, the build up, the stun, which is what they did, but I don't think it's enough. How I would go about it, I'd probably like nerf the bleed, maybe 20% less build up per hit, and then I would nerf seppuku like a good 50% less of it. So that way you don't have to always be running away versus seppuku, but yeah, that's one way of doing it.
I don't know if we touch on it. I've noticed in my duels, people will build up bleed and other affinities on me even as I'm dodging through it, which I don't think that was the case with Dark Souls 3. I may be wrong.
No, it
You're
wasn't.
wrong.
It's
It
a
was the
phantom
case.
proc.
Okay.
Yeah, so
It's
the
been
way
like
the way
that in all
phantom
Souls games.
Yeah, the way Phantom proc works is mainly because it's a player-to-player thing. But if you rolled the attack on your screen but not on theirs, then the status effect still applies because the way damage works is it's a 2-check system on both sides. The way status effect works is it's a check system on the attacker side. So if I were to swing at you and you reaction roll it, let's say you reaction roll it just a little bit late and you don't get hit by the attack, but you get like that ghost hit applies a status.
Okay,
And
you're
also
definitely right.
that's also one thing that makes poison actually good, because poison would
Correct.
probably
Yeah.
be useless if it wasn't for that.
And then
Poison's in a good place. That's like one status that's in a good spot right now. It's actually poison. Poison's fairly balanced, and it would probably be meta if all the other status were not completely broken.
Yeah.
That's the one irony of the current status of how affinities are status effects. It's poison has benefited greatly from it, and if there's one status effect that doesn't need changing, it would be poison because it really does need just how it is right now. But the other stats effects, they need to
And
have
that's
the type
how
of
it was.
time.
That's how it was in Dark Souls 3. The build up for poison was a lot higher than the other ones too. So like it was like the build up for poison to like the damage it takes, the perk it has, everything just makes sense for it. And it's just the other one. And like JeeNiNe said, right now, being just a damage dealer, it's not interesting. I don't find them interesting right now at all. And I'm like, man, I'm extremely disappointed. I'm extremely disappointed the way they nerfed the stun, because I know they're gonna nerf the build up just like how they did before in Dark Souls 3. And when they do, now we're back to Dark Souls 3 bleed, pretty much.
I don't know if I agree that the damage nerf was that the stun nerf was a bad thing. And the reason for that I don't know if I agree with that is because even though I don't get a true combo out of it, I broke what they're doing, right? So I'm still in an advantage because I broke what their posture, and now they need to do something out of that, and I'm in the ability that I can pressure them and force them to roll out of that and roll catch and stuff. So I don't know. I think the stun is actually in a really good place right now.
Right now, yes. Like right now, this is better now than before. Gabri's talking about when they're gonna nerf the build up even further. So you're not gonna be able to pull that off, in the future.
Yeah. So
not as easily.
Exactly what JeeNiNe's saying. Like after they didn't nerf the build up because that's affecting PVE as well. PVE it's overpowered in PVE as well. So I'm sure it's gonna get a build up nerf. But so previously you worked hard to get the build up. You worked hard like to get it. It was not easy to get. But as soon as you get it, you can iframe it. That was the issue with bleed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
then now. And then like with the stun, if it was before nerfing it, if it had Dark Souls 3 bleed build up, so what would happen is yeah, you're gonna work hard, but you can get if you're paying attention, you can get rewarded. You can get rewarded and like get the follow up to get free damage because as soon as you proc it, if you're paying attention, you can now follow up with an attack and you get the damage, right? But it's not free as before 1.03 patch where like the build if you attack someone, the second hit is always gonna stun them. That's what the situation is for the build up. So the second hit is always gonna stun them, and as soon as you get it, even if they're iframe, you can follow up with an attack and then you damage them and then they're dead. Do you get what I mean? So like
Yeah,
that's why.
you're saying once they nerf bleed, the stun will be too much of a nerf.
Yeah.
Once they nerf
That,
the actual build up. Okay,
and,
no,
then-
that's
and,
I understand.
and, then- and then the issue is when they do nerfs, it's hard to come back to it. That's why
Yeah.
like it's hard to get back to the buff back unless they do the redon thing. Like,
Yeah,
but
I was actually really disappointed in the patch notes that there was nothing about Radon.
Oh no, they
I'm
in the
sure you
patch
were,
before
dude.
they did rebuff him.
I know, I was that's
Yeah.
why I was saying
that
I
was just a
disappointed
joke.
in
Like
that.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's where I stand on that. It is what it is. We can't get everything,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay. I would like to ask one more question for everyone before we finish the show. So my question is, if there's one thing you can remove from the game, and this isn't a serious question, it could be a joke, if you could remove any one thing from the game, what would it be? So LBU, we'll start with you.
Bloodhound step.
Bloodhound Step?
Yeah, hands down.
Okay. Easy. Simple. JeeNiNe.
There's one obvious answer, but I'm gonna say I would remove myself from the game, but unfortunately the funnel's attached to it. But otherwise, Bloodhound Step.
Okay. Bloodhound Step. That's two votes to remove Bloodhound Step. Gabri, what would you remove from the game? Anything.
God damn it! I hate the questions like this because I have a lot of issues with the game. Honestly, like I'm not. I'm trying to have fun, but like there's just so many issues and they just pile up one on another. Like you have the freaking button
Poise,
input
Gabri.
delay, the
No, for you, it's
poise.
poise.
Like no, it's not even about that. Like it's more like just it's a combination of a lot of shit at one. It's just a pile of a mess, and I don't know how come people defend it the way it is right now.
Pick one.
I'm gonna go like and against the obvious and say like the movement it needs to be like is that removing? I don't think it's removing. The like the movement in the button input that needs to be fixed. That needs to be fixed if that's considered about removing. Like because it's one thing where you have like an attack like or an animation like Bloodhound that ruins the game, and it's another thing. I'm playing a video game where I'm attacking, or doing an input, and it's
not doing what you're doing.
exactly like I hate that shit. I'm playing a game. I need it to work the way a game works, and if it's not doing that, to me that just takes me out of my immersion, and like I lose interest to play, and I just get off.
Yeah.
Okay. Enda?
I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna give two. Stop me. Bloodhound Step users is my meme answer, and then from anything else, then it would be the input drops. Because I invite everyone to boot up DS3 if you can stomach it. Like it's so good pressing a button.
I did.
It's so good pressing a button and something actually happening semi-reliably. It was still imperfect, but at least it was better than this.
That was tighter
yeah.
input-wise.
Yeah, so much so, and there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Brena?
The main menu being so loud. Didn't they learn from Dark Souls 3? You turn on the game and it starts yelling at you? Come on, Dark
Blows
Souls
up
1
your
you got it
speakers.
right.
Hey, they did a nerf to that, Brena. Like at the beginning, there you have like 30 seconds before it goes like, boom,
Yeah,
like,
they give you like a little bit of time.
Yeah, you
But
gotta be fast. You gotta be fast.
I like the verbiage of they nerfed it there. That's good.
I'm kidding. It's obviously Bloodhound Step.
I'm gonna be a little original. Remove teabagging from the game because
Oh,
I
come
think
on.
as a community, we're so much better than other communities We should not be resorting to
No.
teabagging. That's so
No.
Halo.
Dude,
That's
this
so
community is
Rainbow
shit.
Six.
What are you
We
talking
have
about?
gestures. Use
Yeah.
the gestures. We do not need teabagging. We're Dark Souls players. We're better than
Honestly, I don't get upset when somebody teabags. I've had some people like I just laugh when I see someone. I'm more like even I don't know if that makes sense. I'm more upset when somebody points down at me. I don't know about you. When somebody teabags, I just get a giggle. Like, hey,
Oh,
you
dude,
know.
no, the clap is way worse.
Oh,
Teabag me all day,
that.
point down at me all day, but do not bloodhound step for 45 minutes and then clap at me when I leave.
The spin.
Oh, that shit
the
drives
dress
me up
one.
the wall, man.
The dress one with the spin. That one is just like it's a funny one. Where he spins
Yeah,
like a little
that's
princess.
funny, yeah.
It's not even close to the freaking the guy the teabagging. Like, come on, like that's nothing. It's just you're just sitting
Teabagging's
down.
nothing. Soap is the best BM anyway.
Yeah,
Oh,
honestly,
yes!
I'm surprised people don't use soap more. Like
Kill
I
them
like
and then
using
use soap. That's my
You
BM.
wash off the blood. Yeah, I thought people would use that a lot more, but you don't
Which one
really
is the
see
soap?
that. It's like the
That's
blue.
an item, Gabri.
It's an item that you can craft.
You need 2 melted mushroom to make it.
Yeah.
It
does it
like
do?
slightly reduces bleed buildup or poison buildup, and like it
Really?
cleans all the blood off of your character. Like when you kill
Yeah.
stuff and you get blood splatter,
It reduces buildup? Wait.
it reduces poison buildup. Yeah, well, that's
Huh.
what it says.
Yeah. It's such a funny
Thanks.
animation. Like you're
Yeah,
literally
it's a great
cleaning
BM.
the blood off of your body. It's such a cool animation, but you don't really see it in PvP. I thought people would be using it a lot more, but maybe we just need someone to start like using it more so we can like get it trending. Like we need to get it
That's
trending.
interesting.
Like
I need
JeeNiNe,
to know
you
what
should use soap more. You should wash your body more after killing someone. If you like win a gank, just start soaping your body and just like start a trend. Let's get everyone to start using soap. Dark
Okay,
Souls
I'll
Clearly,
do
the
players
that.
guy with
need to
Bath
use
in his
more
name is
soap.
going to use.
I would hope you use soap, Brena.
Clearly, the guy with Bath in his name is going to use soap.
Oh, that's true. That's a good one.
But
well timed, Vernon.
but anyway, I want to thank everyone for joining the podcast. Thank you, Gabri, for joining us despite only having 3 hours of sleep.
Oh my God.
Thank you, JeeNiNe, for joining us too. Just thank you all of you guys, and thank you for the audience. If you stuck around for the entire podcast, we recorded for an hour and 30 minutes, a little more than that actually. So if you stuck around for the whole show, thank you so much. Thank you for supporting the show. Remember to follow everyone. I'll have links to everyone's socials in the description down below. I guess I'll just let everyone have their goodbyes. So, Brena,
Have a good night. Thanks for
E-
having me.
Enda,
Thank you so much, Knight, for hosting this, and for all those who stuck around, thank you for listening.
Gabri,
Thank you for having me, and you guys have a good one.
JeeNiNe.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, and I want to say it was fun. That's the first time that I got to talk with LBU and directly, and I think Brena as well. And it was nice to talk to you guys. You too, khknight. And thanks for the opportunity.
And LBU.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's just fun as always. I'm excited to keep them coming, and big thank you to anybody who's took the hour and a half out of their day to listen. And obviously, big thank you to the people that we can always have come in.
Yeah, it's like I know this is pretty niche. Like just we're in multiple niches. Like Dark Souls is a niche, PvP is a niche, duels within PvP is a niche, and then like just
Tournaments.
talking tournaments is a niche within a niche, and then like having this show that's all about talking nerd shit basically, talking about the ins and outs of PvP. That's a whole niche within a niche within a niche. So, if you're one of the few people who are into that stuff, again, thank you for watching and thank you for listening. There will be more podcasts in the future. I would like to talk about Invasion specifically in the next episode. So look forward to that. And again, thank you to my guests. It was an honor to have you all on the show and chat. And that's it. Thank you and
All
peace
right.
out. Have a good
Have a
one.
good one, guys.
Bye.
Bye.